for public comment. The microphones at the podium and tables are directional and require that you hold them fairly close to your mouth when speaking to ensure your testimony is captured by our audio equipment. For members and participants who are appearing via Zoom, if you cannot hear the presenter, please use the comment feature to note that, as staff are monitoring the comments in real time. Council, please call the roll.
Member Becton.
Present.
Member Johnson.
Here.
Chair Ravel.
Present.
Good morning. Item 1 is going to be the approval for the minutes for the March 20th, 25 board meeting.
Is there any discussion, addition, or corrections to the minutes from the board?
No.
Do I have a motion to approve item 1?
I move approval of the March 20th, 2025 minutes. Sorry.
I'll second that.
Council, please call the roll.
Any public comment on this issue? Hearing none, the motion for consideration is approval of the March 20th, 2025 board meeting minutes. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next item is public comment. Item 2, this is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda, as items discussed during public comment have not been agendized. The board is not permitted to take any action on these matters at this meeting. Please note, if you wish to offer public comment regarding items 7 through 12, there will be a separate call for public comment when the item is heard by the board. For those on the phone, if you previously indicated your desire to offer comments during this meeting, we'll be calling on you by name or phone number. For those participating via Zoom, please raise your hand if you wish to offer comment, and we will acknowledge you and let you know when it is your turn to speak.
Thank you. Ms. Petros?
Good morning, Chair Ravel, members Becton and Johnson, and executive staff. My name is Margaret Petros. I'm the executive director with the nonprofit Mothers Against Murder. I spent the past 4 decades advocating for crime victims across California. And despite years of raising the same red flags and even a resounding judicial win in MEM versus Cal VCB, this agency continues to systemically fail the very victims it was created to help. Nothing is changing, and it's very disappointing. And 8 months ago, I assisted the mother of a 19-year-old murder victim. Her son was shot and killed while driving. She was initially told by the Santa Clara County District Attorney-based Victim Services that she did not qualify for an emergency Cal VCB funeral claim. 5 months later, she came to MEM, and we helped her file directly with Cal VCB. The application was accepted last year in December, but the cost of funeral claim remains unresolved. In February, we responded to a request by Cal VCB that there was no source of reimbursement by auto insurance. But what is troublesome is the demand to submit a DMV SR1 accident form, something completely irrelevant to a homicide case. This form is required only in traffic accidents, not violent crimes, and must be completed by the driver, who in this case is deceased. The mother is neither the driver nor the vehicle owner. DMV is not a reimbursement source. So I ask you today, where in the law, in the regulations, or policy this is required? I've read the statutes and regulations. I don't find anything in there. I don't know about a policy changes so much, but if this has been added into the policy, I'd like to know who did that. That person should be fired. Why are you making it difficult for victims? And Cal VCB continues to just manufacture barriers, hoops that delay and discourage. This isn't just bureaucratic inefficiency, it's cruelty. It's a scandal how difficult you make it for victims to access basic assistance. And honestly, it's just so exhausting for advocates like myself who try to help them. This board has a duty to act. Stop burdening victims. Start fixing the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petros. Is there any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we can move to item 3.
Item 3 is the Executive Officer Statement, which will be presented by Executive Officer Linda Gledhill.
Good morning. Thank you very much. A couple items for all of you. I did want to make a note of the federal climate and how it impacts victim services. While CalVCB has not been directly impacted, we know that many of our partners in the field have been impacted. They have already received grants that have been canceled and have increasingly under threat of cancellation of grants. We are feeling hopeful that our grant won't be impacted. It is an appropriation that Congress approves. The formula guarantees a certain portion of funding for compensation grants, and those compensation grants are funded first. And historically, there has been enough funding to cover all of those compensation grants. We have not received any federal updates, funding updates from the federal government since the beginning of the new administration. I think what we don't know is what kind of conditions might be put on that funding. Traditionally, we would receive that information sometime over the summer, so we'll continue to keep the board updated on any information we receive. Partners have shared, though, that they are reducing services or preparing to reduce services, and we've seen an increase that they've noted that victims don't want to engage in the process, that they are fearful due to immigration issues. And CalVCB has seen an overall decrease in applications, especially those represented by advocates, and whether that's because victims don't feel comfortable coming forward or the advocates are perhaps no longer there because of funding cuts. It's something we continue to talk with them about, but mostly it's because they say people don't feel safe. We have seen an increase in self-represented or people filing their own application. You'll hear more about that from the civilian presentation. And we're hopeful that the marketing efforts that we're continuing will help to offset some of those challenges, and we will continue to see applications come in. But we do recognize that this is a challenging time for victims in the state of California, and we're here to help them as much as we can. Yesterday, the governor released his May revise of the state budget. I wanted to let you all know the Prop 47 savings actually increased by just over $300,000. So we'll be notifying the TRCs. We'll do those calculations and increasing the grants where appropriate. And those grants will be effective July 1st, 2025. The governor did state that the Prop 47 decreases significantly in the out year. So while it was $91.5 million this year, the estimate for fiscal year 27-28 is $27.1 million. So again, as we all know, significant changes coming to that TRC, the savings and what's allocated to the TRC program. We have scheduled, at the request of the board, the TRC informational hearing for July 17th at 1 p.m. We have invited founders of the TRC model from UC San Francisco, representatives from longstanding TRCs. We'll have a funding outlook, and CalVCB will share information about the grant process. We'll invite all new and existing TRCs to participate in that hearing, and we look forward to the discussion with the board. I wanted to give you an update on the regulations. At the January meeting, the board authorized regulations regarding victim compensation, appeals, and income loss. The public comment for those regulations has closed, and a public hearing, which has been requested, is scheduled to take place on June 16th from 1 to 3 here in Sacramento and via Zoom. At the March board meeting, the board adopted regulations regarding the claims of erroneously convicted individuals, and we have received notice from the Office of Administrative Law that they have been approved and will be effective July 1st, 2025. I wanted to mention one of the things that we've been working on at CalVCB is an advocate portal. While it supports 800 advocates who help their victims file applications with CalVCB, we expanded the ability of people to use that program in January and opened it up to CBOs, so folks who maybe have one or two people who help victims and also file applications. We've onboarded 21 new organizations. We've had 2 webinars highlighting the portal's functionality and recent improvements, and we continue to make updates, but the improvements that we have made allowed advocates to see additional application information, increasing access to CalVCB resources, and we are adding additional training as well. So we hope that that is a useful tool for advocates who are seeking to help victims process applications. I want to note that April was National Crime Victims' Rights Week and Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and CalVCB participated in many activities related to those 2 events. CalVCB also has, over the past 2 years, taken a leading role in assisting the First Partners Working Group on support for survivors for sexual assault. Not only was I a member of the work group, but CalVCB was the administrative partner for that effort. So we did a lot of the behind the scenes work for that working group. That report was released in mid-April and includes recommendations on how government organizations can better help sexual assault victims. So very, very happy to have that work completed, but also very proud of the effort we were able to do with the First Partners Office. Finally, I want to note that we did our annual denim drive in April, and we collected more than 200 pairs of jeans, which was a record. And just this week, we went to Empower YOLO, an organization that supports victims of sexual assault, and dropped those off in Woodland. They have a closet there for not only sexual assault survivors and families, but anyone in the community who might need some additional resources. And while we were there, saw several people coming in to utilize the need for some additional clothing, including a woman with an infant. So it's very gratifying that the organization, our employees, do that kind of work just on their own to help the people that we support. So I'm very grateful to all of our CalVCB staff for participating. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Executive Officer Gledhill. It's a complex mix of things. I have the issue about the federal funds. I don't think I know anybody who hasn't been affected either personally or professionally by the changes and the tumult at the federal government. So it's really unfortunate that this is trickling down to the organizations that you're working with. I was very happy to hear that there's additional funding for the TRCs. It still doesn't come close to meeting the need that we heard at the last meeting and previously too, but at least it's going in the right direction and there weren't more funds taken away. And thank you for sharing about the community outreach and working directly with victim services organizations by staff. That's really heartening to hear, and I want to express my appreciation to staff for doing that as well. Incredibly important to see the impacts of what you're doing in the community. Are there any questions or comments from board members?
If I may.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for getting that TRC meeting agendized. I really look forward to that conversation. Obviously, as you pointed out, there's an increase of funding, slight increase of funding this year. As Chair pointed out, that's not going to be enough to meet the need we keep hearing about. But we also see a decrease in the out years, and so we need to plan for that. And I'm glad that that conversation will kickstart with this hearing this summer. So looking forward to that, and thank you for getting the ball rolling.
Chair, just a couple of things. I'm really glad to hear about the increase, slight as it was. I think any increase is good news for the Prop 47 savings, which will now go to our TRCs, and hopefully it will be helpful. So, and then really, really looking forward to the opportunity to engage in the TRC discussion and to hear from those who are most affected by the decisions that are made. I think this has been something that many of the TRCs have asked for, and so it's really good to hear that it's up and coming, and we're looking forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Beckton. Member Johnson.
Thank you. Moving to item 4 is the legislative update, which will be presented by Deputy Executive Officer Katie Gardinas.
Good morning. Just kneel. Thanks, Linda. As the legislature nears the deadline for bills to pass out of the appropriations committees on May 23rd, I would like to highlight the status of a few key bills. AB 1100 by Assemblymember Sharp Collins would make significant changes to victim compensation statutes. The bill was placed on the suspense file in the Assembly Appropriations Committee, where it will be heard at the end of the week. AB 379 by Assemblymember Schultz would require CalVCB to award grants to community-based organizations that provide direct services in areas with a high concentration of sex trafficking. This bill has recently been amended twice to make changes to criminal penalties and fines related to prostitution and human trafficking. However, the amendments have not changed CalVCB's role in administering a grant process. The bill is currently on the Assembly floor. SB 490 by Senator Umberg would have made changes to the process for considering the claims for compensation of erroneously convicted individuals. This bill was held in the Senate Public Safety Committee and will not move forward this year. Finally, SB 470 by Senator Laird has been amended. Originally, the bill would have indefinitely extended the current provisions governing the use of teleconferencing for public meetings by a state body. The bill has been amended and now would extend those provisions until January 1st, 2030. The bill is currently on the Senate floor. Those are the highlights, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. That's very interesting to hear about the Bagley-Keene changes. Not just 2030. I wonder how they picked that date. Anyway, are there any questions or comments from board members?
Is there any public comment on this item here in Sacramento or via Zoom?
Here we go. Good morning. Does this work? All right. My name is Joseph Trujillo, and I'm the Executive Director of Loyola Law School's Project for the Innocent. And this morning, I am joined with exonerees sitting behind me, as well as leaders in the Innocence community. And we are here to express our concerns around Senate Bill 490, an update for which you had just heard. We're here not just
I'm
about
sorry
this-
to interrupt, but if you're speaking right into the mic, please, because it's a little difficult to hear you. Thank you.
Apologies, Ms. Beckton. Is this a little bit better? We are here to speak about Senate Bill 490, not just the substance, but our concerns about the way that this legislation came to be. We have serious concerns with how this board's involvement in the drafting and proposal of this legislation impacts the fairness and neutrality, or at least the appearance of fairness and neutrality in this board's important decision-making in resolving compensation claims for erroneously convicted people. As you heard, this bill is not going to be introduced this session. It has been it has been converted into a 2-year bill by its author, Senator Umberg. However, he has stated that he plans to bring the bill back next session. And so the concerns about the substance and the manner in which it was proposed are still very much alive. We are grateful that the bill is not going to be moved forward, but we do view this opportunity as a moment to reflect. And we ask this board to take this moment to renew its commitment to be neutral and unbiased decision makers. We ask this board to look honestly at its role in advocating for legislation that affects one side, the parties opposing and objecting to compensation claims. This board should already be familiar with the substance of Senate Bill 490. We laid those out in detail in a letter to you in March 27th, signed by many of my colleagues and individuals sitting behind me. But briefly, Senate Bill 490 introduces a number of changes to the framework for compensation for erroneously convicted men and women. For example, it extends the time and allows the Attorney General's office or the District Attorney's office objecting to claims to delay compensation and extend their time to oppose. It limits the consideration of new evidence by this board, allowing objections to compensation to be limited simply to the trial record, ignoring new evidence of innocence or of wrongful conviction. It bars currently exonerated or currently incarcerated people from receiving compensation, and it allows restitution claims to be deducted from the compensation amounts. Each of these provisions further disadvantages and makes it more difficult for individuals who have been found erroneously convicted and have already suffered harms in the system. But as problematic as its substance is the manner in which the bill was proposed. Senate Bill 490 appears to be an idea that came straight from this board's attempt at advocacy. It's our understanding that this board proposed the substance of this legislation. And when any board, particularly Cal VCB, proposes legislation like this, it makes it harder for innocent people to understand that they have a neutral arbiter resolving their claims. It crosses a line and it violates the neutral role that Cal VCB is supposed to play. This board holds the power to compensate individuals who have been gravely wronged, people who have endured years, sometimes decades, who you will hear from this morning, for crimes they did not commit. These individuals have already been failed by one part of the system, and we urge this board to recognize your important role in attempting to right those wrongs. So we want to center today the voices of those who have already lost so much and urge this board to act with transparency, without bias, and with neutrality. And that starts with avoiding advocacy efforts on behalf of only one side of the parties that are before you when you are asked to resolve these compensation claims. We implore this board to take a look at what happened in the past and not repeat this in the next legislative session. As you all know, justice is not simply served when an innocent or erroneously convicted person is released from prison. It takes a commitment from all of us, and this board plays a crucial role in that commitment to ensure that those rights are wronged. And we ask this board to revisit its role in Senate Bill 490. Now I will turn it over to our next speaker.
Thank you very much for your time. My name is Karen Sinanu-Towry, and pertinent to today, I am retired from the Santa Clara County District Attorney's Office after 30 years. And after that retirement, I became a volunteer attorney at the Northern California Innocence Project. There, I worked on the investigation and ultimate exoneration of Jeremy Puckett, who was awarded compensation from the state for his wrongful conviction. As a prosecutor, I served as a trial attorney, a supervisor, and ultimately chief assistant. When I headed the homicide division, I supported the investigation and exoneration of Rick Walker, who also won compensation from the state. And at that time, there had to be a Senate bill introduced, and he had to continue to fight his case through the Senate. Fortunately, that law has changed. I served on the board of CDAA, and I co-authored the Victims' Rights Manual, which was distributed to California attorneys, judges, and advocates. So I have a strong belief in justice for all and the protection of victim rights, and in that I include those who have been exonerated. I am deeply concerned about the language in Senate Bill 490, in particular, the position it places on exonerees, as well as what it would allow prosecutors to do. Currently, Penal Code Section 4900 allows the prosecutor to object and present clear and convincing evidence of a claimant's guilt, without relying solely on the trial record. Without relying solely on the trial record. And of course, the current law makes absolute sense. An exoneration or reversal comes about due to new evidence, insufficient evidence, incompetence, changes in the law, misconduct. And you're very familiar with all those issues. Shockingly, SB 490 eliminated that vital portion of the compensation statute. And it would actually allow prosecutors to base objections and fight against a claim based solely on the trial record, the record that was defective, and thereby ignoring exculpatory evidence. If the prosecution can ignore post-conviction evidence, the same evidence that led to reversal, this would effectively nullify the legal significance of the post-trial outcome and the newly discovered evidence. In turn, SB 490 would victimize exonerees who have lost freedom, years, and time, of course, with their families. Do exonerees have to continually fight against a faulty trial? I can think of nothing more unjust. And finally, SB 490 is absolutely contrary to a prosecutor's ethical duty and obligation to respect a court's ruling and the Constitution. Penal Code Section 4900, the current law, is effective. It serves justice for exonerees. It respects the court's exoneration rulings and the ethical obligations of prosecutors. Thank you so much for your time today.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Long, and I am an exoneree. I spent over 7 years in prison for a crime I did not commit. I was finally exonerated in 2021. But if the state had been allowed to rely solely on the trial record to decide whether I deserve compensation, I never would have had a chance. But here's the truth. The trial record was not on my side. It was filled with incomplete information, flawed testimony, assumptions that were later proven wrong. My conviction was overturned because of evidence and facts that came to light after trial evidence showed that I was innocent. But if the system had been allowed to ignore everything outside the trial record, I'd still be branded guilty. And I never would have received the compensation that helped me rebuild my life and helped me back into the medical field. I am now a nurse. That's why Senate Bill 490 is so dangerous. It would shut the door on people like me. It would give the state permission to look away from the full story, to stop at the version of events that sent us to prison in the first place. I was lucky, but so many others are still fighting. They deserve a process that looks at the whole truth, not just the pieces that were used to convict them. Because wrongful convictions don't happen in a vacuum. They happen in courtrooms, in trial records, and in official documents that don't always tell the full story or truth. We cannot allow the state to rely solely on the same record that got it wrong. If we do, we risk denying justice to the very people it was meant to protect. As someone who has lived this, I'm asking you, please, don't close the door on future exonerees. Don't make it harder for them to be heard. Let their full stories be told just like mine was. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Patterson. I'm an exoneree as well. I was exonerated March the 13th, 2024. I've also been a recipient of compensation that was given to me in October of last year. Thank you again for what you guys have done here. You guys are doing great things. But there was a time when I didn't have any help, any resources there was a time where I didn't have anybody to come and lend a helping hand. And because of that, and not having credentials to go get a job or having the know-how to do so, it caused me to fall short. It caused me to fall into things that caused me to could have gotten back in trouble for things that I didn't do. So this compensation board and the time that you guys spend to check into everything to make sure that things are done properly is extensive, and it potentially helped me. But in the long run, for those of us that are coming behind me, being released from prison and being exonerated after almost 2 decades without any job skills, it really, really was hard on me. So my stance here today is to hopefully give you guys a better understanding on what we go through as exonerated people, and what we've been through is already harsh. So to wait any longer to get what we rightfully deserve, to me, is harsh. I appreciate what you did for me, and I'm pretty sure everyone behind me does. I know that you guys only have a limited of time to do certain things, like I have a limited of time to speak today. I wanted to have something written out, but I believe from the heart it's just much better. Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Jeremy Puckett, and I'm also an exonerated person. One of the concerns I want to raise today is about the Cal. Raise it up? Okay, there we go. Hold it like this. It was about the Cal VCP's role. Me and this board is meant to be a neutral decision maker, but this neutrality has come into question as of late when Cal VCP has actively lobbying for Senate Bill 490, a legislation that will make it harder for people such as myself to receive compensation after being wrongfully convicted. When the very same board who is responsible for applying these rules are also the very same people who are working behind the scenes to change these rules in ways that make claims harder to win. It is now hard to see how these wrongfully convicted claims are being processed fair. I myself was exonerated in January of 2020, which I spent close to 19 years of my life in prison for a crime I did not commit. And thankfully, I was able to also get compensated. However, everyone is not as fortunate as I was. And I know exonerees who are still waiting, men and women who have lost just as much as me, or even more, who are fortunately may never receive compensation after being wrongfully convicted, or even a formal acknowledgement of the harm done to them. After 19 years myself, I carry a deep sense of responsibility to speak up for those who are coming behind me. It hurts to think that their path of healing will be made harder because not of the facts of their innocence, but because of the decisions made behind the scenes. And though the monetary compensation is only a small part of our healing, it does make things easier for us. And I believe not only myself, but I'm sure in the hearts of everybody, you also believe that every exoneree deserves a fair shot at healing. We deserve a system that sees us, values us, and stands by us, and not one that quietly moves the goalposts. And I just want to thank you today. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Todd Freeze, and I am the Executive Director at the Northern California Innocence Project. One of the most troubling strategies used to justify SB 490 was Cal VCB's decision to cite past claimants, individuals who had already been exonerated and compensated, as reasons to change the law. These are people whose convictions were reversed by courts of law. Their innocence has been legally acknowledged, and in many cases hard fought through years of litigation, reinvestigation, and personal struggle. To suggest that their compensation was somehow mistaken undermines not only their individual dignity, but the integrity of the entire exoneration process. Rather than honoring those decisions as examples of justice done right, albeit too late, Cal VCB used them as cautionary tales, suggesting that perhaps these individuals were truly undeserving. That isn't just unfair, it's unjust, and it's dangerous. What message does that send? It tells exonerees and the public that no matter how much you've endured, no matter how thoroughly your innocence is proven, the state may still second guess you. And worse, use your name and your story as a tool to deny future claimants access to justice. This re-traumatizes people who have already been profoundly harmed by the legal system. It turns their hard-won victories into liabilities. It signals that their past suffering is not only minimized, but weaponized against others still seeking redress. It also distorts the mission of the California Victim Compensation Board. This board is meant to serve those who have endured the worst failures of our legal system. Its role is not to sow doubt upon its previous decisions or to politicize the pain of those it exists to help. To use past claimants as justification to narrow eligibility is not sound public policy. It's retaliation masquerading as reform. The board must reaffirm its commitment to the principles of fairness, compassion, and accountability. It must stand by its own findings made after rigorous review under the law and by the exonerees those findings vindicate. To do anything less is to betray the very foundation of justice. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jasmine Harris, Director of Policy at the Innocence Center and Policy Representative for the California Innocence Coalition. I've worked on erroneous conviction claims for nearly 10 years, helping craft and pass the legislation that governs them and directly advocating for my clients in pursuit of their compensation before this board. Over that time, one thing has become increasingly clear. There seems to be a consistent gap in how exonerated people are acknowledged by this institution. I want to believe this is an oversight, not an intentional exclusion, but the pattern is hard to ignore. For example, in CalVCB's own e-learning overview video, there's no mention of these claims. In the 60-year anniversary video, they're referenced for just 3 seconds of an almost 3-minute piece. There are no social media posts acknowledging erroneous conviction claims or people impacted. There's no dedicated e-learning resource to help exonerated people fill out their applications, unlike the robust tools available for victims of crime. Even in the 2025 to 2028 strategic plan, these claims are entirely absent. This lack of visibility may not be deliberate, but it has real consequences. When people who have been wrongfully convicted are left out of your messaging, your resources, and your strategic planning, it sends an unintentional but painful message that they are not seen. We're especially concerned now with Senate Bill 490. You've already heard how the line may have been crossed from neutrality into advocacy. You've heard how the experiences of past claimants were used in ways that could have unintended consequences, and how these patterns may shape perceptions of fairness. We know the board takes its responsibility seriously, and we know that this work isn't easy. That's why we're asking now not just for reflection, but for action. This isn't just about a single piece of legislation. It's about rebuilding trust and ensuring that exonerated people and their families and the public see CalVCB as a partner in justice. Those who have been wrongfully convicted have already paid the highest price. They shouldn't also have to fight to be recognized and supported by the very agency entrusted with helping them heal. Today, we respectfully request that CalVCB clarify, either at the next board meeting or in writing, the process and criteria the board uses to determine when and how to engage in legislative advocacy, including what guidelines are in place to ensure neutrality and avoid conflicts of interest. We also hope that you all will reflect on past compensation decisions in light of the bias revealed through CalVCB's legislative advocacy. When CalVCB advocates for laws that would restrict access to compensation, it raises serious concerns about whether similar biases may have influenced claim decisions, consciously or unconsciously. A review of past denials is necessary to ensure that every decision has been made fairly without internal pressures that favored one side. And finally, my hope today is that you all can truly recognize the profound honor you have in helping make an exonerated person whole again. For many, this board is their first experience of the state trying to repair the harm it caused. That responsibility is not just legal, it is moral, and it must be carried out with integrity, neutrality, and care. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trujillo, Ms. Nunutauri, Ms. Long, Mr. Patterson, Mr. Puckett, Mr. Freitas, and Ms. Harris. I remember your claim very well, Mr. Puckett. It stuck with me over the years. And thank you, Ms. Nunutauri, for your advocacy in that case. I still remember that claim very clearly. I think it was in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, that it came before us. Not long after I started sitting on the board for then Secretary Richardson. I don't want to speak for my colleagues, and I'll let everybody speak in a minute. But I know we all agree that our role here is to apply the law neutrally, not to have thumb on the scale in any way. The board has not taken a position on this legislation, or to my knowledge, any legislation in the past. It has not been the sponsor of any bill, was not the sponsor of this bill. As I understand it from staff, and they can correct me if I'm wrong about this, some technical assistance and publicly available information was provided to the sponsor, but that was the limit, as I understand it. But with that, Ms. Becton or Mr. Johnson, do you have any questions or comments?
I do, and I'm really apologizing. I didn't hear all the comments because I had some technical difficulty and my computer just completely went out. But I heard most of them, and I am aware of the concern, but I really do need to have the clarification about the perception that there's some advocacy on behalf of the board. As a board member, I can only speak for myself. I do not, and I am not aware of any other board member who has been involved in advocating for or against any legislation that is pending, particularly something that would actually affect the process, the very process that we have to consider here as a board member. And so I think that perception really has to be clarified, because with respect to this particular legislation 490 or any other legislation, we do not have an advocacy role. Now, certainly there are times in my role as district attorney, I may adopt a position, but I certainly haven't taken one on this, and I wouldn't take any on ones that affect us, affect my role here as a board member. So that has to be clarified. We get an informational packet about legislation that is pending. We do not, as board members, participate or give any opinions about the legislation. So I do think that we need to make sure our role, that we understand our role, that we do have to be neutral and based on the information that's provided to us, make the best neutral positions that we can. I imagine, and I don't know this, and I can't speak for staff, I would imagine that staff may be called on to provide technical assistance to certain legislation, but I'm not aware of whether that has happened or not in this particular case. But certainly, I think it should be made very clear that as board members, we are not involved in the advocacy for or against this particular legislation or any other legislation that I'm aware of. Thank you, Chair.
If I may. I would only echo Member Beckton's sentiments that, as a board member here, I have not engaged on any conversations around this bill or other legislation related to Cal VCB. And, obviously it's, I can't speak for the staff. It's my understanding that there are times when we are all called upon for technical assistance in areas in which we are technical experts. We have the controller's office are called on that for issues in which we engage on in a technical capacity. But on issues related to our authorities here on the board, I have not engaged on in any conversations around this bill or other bills, and that is not, as I see it, my role here. So I would just echo Member Beckton's sentiment.
Yes.
Thank you for asking for that clarification. And if I may just have a couple minutes to talk about the difference in the escalation that I saw with this bill versus other bills. Like I said, I've worked on legislation around compensation for the last 10 years. I've worked with Ms. Gautier, I've worked with Linda, I've worked with everybody here on staff. There was a large escalation with Senate Bill 490. When you all have provided technical assistance in the past, didn't look anything like this bill. The staff are referred to Cal VCB as the sponsors. That's where I got that notion from. When I zoomed into meetings to speak about my concerns about this bill with the staffers, Cal VCB staff was in those meetings. When you look at the specific amendments, where would those amendments come from if it wasn't from here? The staff in these meetings, Cal VCB staff in these meetings, said to me that the Cal VCB board members think that if the AG or the DA has more time to decide these claims, that more claims would be denied. That doesn't sound like technical assistance to me. So I just want to make sure that that distinction is being made, that it isn't what I've seen in the past with technical assistance. It's much more robust with this bill, which is why we're all here. I mean, Kim can vouch, we've worked together on legislation quite a bit. This was a far departure from that. That's the clarification I want to make.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. I can't speak to where the notion that the board thinks that more claims would be denied if the AG had more time came from. And that's certainly not something that came up in any board discussion.
Are we moving on? Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll move to item 5 now, which is the contract report, and it will be presented by Deputy Executive Officer Sean Ramirez.
Good morning, board members. Today's contract report is informational. It consists of operational contracts as well as information technology equipment. No approvals are necessary at this time. However, I'm happy to answer any questions around it.
Incorporated. This will be presented by Deputy Executive Officer Katie Gardinas.
Hello again. Today, you will hear an update from our marketing vendor, Civilian, on the progress of our $3 million awareness campaign. We received one-time funding in the Budget Act of 2022 to conduct a statewide marketing campaign with a focus on reaching underserved populations. We have been working with Civilian since August 2023 on planning and implementing this campaign. The advertisement started about a year ago in April of 2024. It's my pleasure to introduce 3 of our partners from Civilian, Carly, Lisa, and Camellia. Carly Wagner is Cal VCB's dedicated senior project manager who oversees the project and our fiscal processes. Along with Cal VCB, she's worked on campaigns across California and has been at Civilian since 2022. She has been deeply involved in the campaign rollout since day one. Lisa Wellborn is Civilian's Director of Media Services, overseeing all paid media investment for the agency. She has 20+ years of experience and specializes in audience-first planning and media measurement. And then Camellia Mortazaga is Civilian's Director of Strategy and Insights. She brings a deep public health expertise and specialty in working with diverse communities and crafting integrated and effective solutions. I'll turn it over to Civilian.
Thank you so much. And I will share my screen now. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes,
Amazing.
thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's such an honor to be here today, and we have a lot of important topics to cover. First, we'll get started with campaign goals and audiences, presented by Camellia. She will walk us through the objectives of our campaign and the key audiences we are targeting to ensure we reach those most in need of Cal VCB services. Next, Lisa will provide an executive media performance summary. She'll give us an overview of how our media channels have been performing, highlighting key metrics and insights that demonstrate the impact of our efforts. Following that, I will share influencer campaign highlights. I'll discuss the success of our influencer partnerships, showcasing how these collaborations have helped raise awareness and engage our target audiences. Finally, Lisa will present the ethnic media plan. She'll outline our strategy for reaching diverse communities and discuss our upcoming next steps to further refine our approach. Let's get started. Camelia, over to you.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Camelia Mordazalzadeh. You probably saw me here about a year ago when we talked about this campaign, but just as a refresh for everyone, I wanted to kind of ground us in what we're trying to do. I want to just be mindful of letting folks know that this is an awareness campaign. We have some goals embedded in it, but a lot of what this campaign is doing is really just helping increase an awareness of what CalVCB is. And I'll share one of our survey results that showed that there isn't enough awareness about what CalVCB is and the services it provides. And then over time, we recognize, this is a campaign and there's limitations to what a campaign can do, but we are hoping to support an increase in those applications if more people that need CalVCB services know that it exists and that it's there to support them, and how we can kind of help drive that next step. And a lot of what we're doing with our objectives is, yes, as I mentioned, increasing awareness of what CalVCB is and knowledge of kind of what the benefits actually are, letting folks know that it's a lifetime benefit, that it's a reimbursement service. And then also really key to what we learned in our research is just building trust, making sure that we're letting people know that, yes, it is worth your time to go through the process. There's concrete examples of supports that you can get and really reasons to believe that this is something that you should take the time to apply for, get the support you need to apply for it. Lots of this work is also being handled by CalVCB teams. And our campaign is reaching individuals of violent crime who may be eligible, but not know otherwise, and their support networks, family, friends, and peers. And then also our campaign is also reaching those secondary supports, victim compensation, victim advocacy centers, TRCs potentially, and thinking about other places that are helping victims. If you go to our next slide. And I keep talking about awareness because when we did our survey, this was in December of 2023, we did a statewide survey, about 600 respondents, about 23% of which I self-identified as a victim of a violent crime. In our survey, we found that only 25% of Californians who we had surveyed had ever heard of CalVCB. 56% were unsure or had an inaccurate understanding of what CalVCB offers, and that gets at that knowledge. But also that we had a lot of work to do with building trust. 25% weren't sure if CalVCB could help them, or they didn't know. So we had to really work on that. But the good news was a lot of people were interested in learning more about CalVCB. So this is a lot of the reasons why we how we built our campaign approach, thinking about making sure we build awareness across the state, but then, more messaging to talk about proof points, letting people know that this is worth their time, this is what it offers, and getting them to the website. Next slide. When we think about our overall campaign strategy, this is how we've really bucketed our campaign. Really, we have to first start at kind of making sure people know who, what, where, what CalVCB is, who they are, what they do, and really position CalVCB. I mean, you're all in this space, but when we talk to the average layperson in California, making sure that they also know what this is, or have an awareness of it, that it's a place that they could go to if they were to become a victim, or if they know someone who is. Really fostering clarity for understanding, making sure that people really know the ins and outs of what CalVCB is, making sure there aren't any misperceptions. It's a reimbursement program. It's a lifetime benefit. There is a process. There is an application process you have to undergo. You may need help completing it. And there's also eligibility criteria. Building trust was also key, making sure we're giving those examples, really letting people know kind of this is how it helped me. There's concrete things that it did for my life. And finally, inspiring engagement, finding ways to really help people want to learn more, know where to go, know what it provides, and then thinking about the array of ways that they might want to take that next step, either for themselves or for someone they know, and talk to them about it. And so really positioning CalVCB as a go-to support and kind of thinking about that as our pillars for our campaign. With that, I'll pass that on to my colleague, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Camelia. And it's really great to meet all of you guys today. Again, I'm Lisa Wellborn. I'm the Director of Paid Media Services here at Civilian. And I'm going to walk you through how that campaign is doing. Just to kind of set the ground, the data that we're sharing with you today covers performance from the campaign's launch in April of 2024. And we're covering 1 year of data, so through March of 2025. So we've been in market for 1 full year, and we can confidently say that the campaign has delivered strong and stable performance, even in the face of some challenges that have come within this campaign window, like the LA fires. The consistency and performance can really be attributed to the effective media optimizations that we are constantly implementing with this campaign. And we're already seeing a lot of great results coming out of that. So through the end of March, the campaign has delivered over 72 million impressions. That includes 20 million in Spanish language, driving awareness among our priority communities and generating 650,000 clicks to the website to date. This campaign continues to be a key driver of both website traffic and applications. So we, across this campaign timeframe, we have seen just over 406,000 website visits that have been driven by this paid media campaign. There has been a 156% increase in average monthly users compared to what we saw in the prior year. And then most importantly, we've seen a 13% increase in self-represented applications. So this is really indicating that it's a strong indicator that individuals are seeing this message, they're trusting it, and then they're taking action on their own. We also want to make a nod to the campaign reach and frequency. So this is another media indicator that we look at, and it really tells us the number of people that are seeing our ad and how often they're seeing it. And since we implemented some of our optimizations in the beginning of 2025, both the reach of this campaign and the frequency have gone up. And that is an indication that our efforts are really working. The campaign is currently delivering an estimated 41% reach of our target audience, with an average frequency of each of them seeing that about 5.5 times. So this is really a steady increase from our last reporting period, and it's right where we want the campaign to be. We have 9 more months of this campaign and tons of media that's going to be in market ahead within those 9 months. And we really feel like we are set up for even greater impact. So if we want to go to the next slide, when the LA fires hit, we knew that we needed to be thoughtful and responsive with our media strategy. And so we took a 3-step approach to pivot effectively and respectively. So first, in January, we made a decision to delay our LA market flight that we had that had originally been scheduled to launch in March of this year. That flight has now been set and moved to August, now that conditions and our messaging are a lot more appropriate. In February, any creative that we had running in the LA market was paused. Any creative that had the word rebuild in it. Because one of the things that we noticed was that it was causing confusion, especially among fire-impacted communities where the term really carried an unintended meaning. And then third, in March, we initiated a creative refresh. So we took a close look at our messaging to really ensure that it was clear, direct, and as sensitive as possible. And the goal here was really to remove any ambiguity and keep our focus on support and accessibility. On this slide, we are really highlighting how we are reaching those underrepresented and hard to reach communities through a deliberate and data-driven approach. And we're really leveraging various targeting methods that you can see here highlighted in orange. From a geography standpoint, we've identified priority counties using crime to application data from the Office of Data and Insights. As I mentioned on the previous slide, the campaign is currently running in both English and Spanish language. But come August of this year, we are going to have an additional push that's going to go into market that's going to launch the additional languages that you see here on the screen. But from culturally relevant media partners to hyper-targeted zip code strategies and demographic and behavioral data, every element of this plan is intentionally designed to connect with Cal VCB, or to connect Cal VCB with the communities that we know need them most. So speaking of our priority geographies, let's take a closer look at one county where we had a focused investment last year in 2024. This was in Kern County. This is one of our emphasized counties. And from August to October of 2024, we delivered 9.6 million impressions in this county across streaming audio, radio, and billboards. The billboards actually really led the way. They over-delivered by 33% because we were able to secure a bunch of added value in that space. And these billboards are really focused on Spanish-speaking and equity priority zip codes. That's where the placements were located. But overall, this awareness flight in Kern County really helped us to connect with these hard-to-reach communities. And over the course of the next 9 months, we have 3 more of these flights planned. So they're going to run in August through October, and they're going to be in San Diego, Los Angeles, and then we're going to have an additional flight in Kern County. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Carly, who's going to take you through the influencer campaign.
Thank you, Lisa. To meet our primary goal of increasing awareness of Cal VCB and its victim compensation services among underserved and hard-to-reach communities in California, we integrated 2 California-based micro-influencers, Alyssa Mancao and Zachary Colley, who are trusted mental health professionals and advocates. These influencers shared information with potential eligible victims through their social media channels, leveraging their credibility and reach to amplify our message. The pilot influencer campaign videos got more than 10,000 views and reached more than 7,000 individual accounts and had an estimated media value of approximately $16,724 with an investment of $8,000. Alyssa is a Los Angeles-based psychotherapist and emotional resilience educator whose audience aligns closely with our target demographics. With a following of 170,000 accounts, Alyssa delivered 2 video reels and 2 video story posts on Instagram. Our investment in her campaign was $6,000. Additionally, Alyssa posted a bonus video on LinkedIn, which was not part of her contract originally. This post had 189 impressions and reached 109 members, further extending our campaign's reach. Zachary reaches men and women aged 25 through 44 in California, particularly in Los Angeles and San Diego, by authentically discussing trauma and resilience. Zachary has a following of 180,000 accounts. He delivered 2 videos on YouTube with an investment of $2,000. Camelia, next slide, and over to you.
Okay, thanks so much. I think you've all seen a couple of things. I just wanted to ground us all on how we're measuring our success by our marketing funnel. We talked about kind of awareness. We talked about this next step of education and engagement. And then finally, over the long term, hoping to increase those applications. And this just kind of gives you a very high level look at how we look at it. We always start big. That's a lot of what our campaigns are. Remember, these are posters or small digital ads. So you can only have so much copy on those. But those are things that we look at. We have a pre-survey we did, and we're also going to be doing a post-survey next spring in 2026 to really see if we've made some changes. And a lot of those measures you saw, the awareness, the trust, the knowledge, and then that's something that we'll have a report on after we launch that campaign. And then thinking about education and engagement, a lot of what we do is we look at how many people are actually engaging with our ads. Are they clicking on them? So you see those things, CTR, clicks, cost per click, making sure that people are seeing the things and they click on them. And that goes to the Cal VCB website. So they're engaging with our ads and our media. And then finally, we also are looking at how we get people to the website. Are they spending time? How long are they spending time on the site? And looking at applications. And then over time, we're looking at that data to see how that is changing. However, as we know, there's lots of factors that are impacting applications we receive. This is a campaign that it's really working on building that awareness and building that trust, but it's one piece of this larger puzzle. But just wanted to share with you all kind of how we think about our measurement. And we'll be back here, I'm sure, to share the results of our post-survey next spring. Next slide.
Great.
Okay, so we quickly wanted to make a nod to our ethnic media plan that is rolling out in August of 2025. So from August through October, we plan to launch this ethnic media plan to reach non-English speaking Californians in high need areas. And this plan was really guided by data that was showing a gap between crime rates and CalVCB application rates. So we designed this plan for culturally relevant outreach across 15 key counties, and we're planning media weight so that we can be effective in market. And so this means that we are aiming to reach 65% of each of the audiences at a five times each. And in addition to English and Spanish, because we currently already have those in market, this ethnic media plan includes targeting for a variety of different languages, which include Vietnamese, Mandarin, Cantonese, Korean, Tagalog, Russian, and many more. We also have a dedicated push to reach the African American community as well. And I also wanted to make a note here that we are updating all of our assets as part of this campaign and translating materials to really help make that application process more accessible for these groups.
Cool. All right, current status and next steps. Our last quarter was quiet, but Q3 will be significant. Media activity will spike with baseline ads running through January 2026 and several key campaigns between August and October 2025, targeting priority and underrepresented audiences. Those additional flights were mentioned by both Lisa and Camelia, but I'll list them again. We have our second flight in Kern County, a flight in San Diego County, our ethnic media plan, and a flight in Los Angeles County. The campaign is on track and performing well, and we are confident that with continued optimizations and strategic adjustments, we will achieve our goals and make a significant impact. Thank you, and now we are opening up for questions.
Thank you so much. This is terrific. Really good information, really good results so far. It's having the intended effect. It's been a struggle to get the word out about the services that are available. So it's great that this is having an impact already. Any questions or comments from my board colleagues? Oh, yes. Ms. Petros, did you have a comment?
Yes, please. I've spoken against this marketing campaign expense before, and I highlight the word expense, and I'll say it again, but with all due respect to the individuals working on this campaign. They seem to be doing an excellent job, but due to my extensive experience in how broken CalVCB is as a system, to me, what good is a $3 million campaign when so many crime victims who reach CalVCB not just leave without help, but are further traumatized? This report is full of data and impressions, clicks, and reach, but not much about outcomes for victims. Talking about influencers and transparency, just last week, a First Amendment auditor visited the CalVCB building in Sacramento seeking public records. He was blocked from entering at the lobby level. That video now on YouTube under Bay Area Transparency has over 131,000 views, 12,000 likes, and nearly 5,000 public comments, most of them outraged. And that's for only 6 days. So for a state agency that has been around for 60 years, you wouldn't need $3 million PR campaign to convince people to use this much needed, actually a desperate need for crime victims as CalVCB's reimbursements. So I think if you did your job right, if this program actually listened and worked on not making it near impossible for victims to be compensated, there wouldn't be a need for an ad, an influencer, or a billboard. No PR can cover up a system that fails the majority of the very people it was built to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Petros. Questions or comments from the board?
Chair, if I may. I just want to thank you for the great presentation and the impressive amount of data you've pulled together. And it looks like there's been a real impact to this campaign. It's nice to see actual outcomes of increased applications, et cetera. I'd be interested at the end of my comment to hear from the staff of the director, what you've seen as an outcome of this campaign. But I'm really impressed at the work that's been done so far, and I think this is much needed work to get word of the program out to communities that might not be aware or underserved communities. One thing I do want to ask about before you answer my question there is just a question to those involved with the campaign about durability, right? This is a one-time slug of funding. It's great that we have it and we're able to have that outreach. But is there anything within this that you think can increase the stickiness, right, of the message, so that when the money goes away, there's that message is still out there in the communities that need it. There's increased awareness, so durable awareness in those communities that the program exists and is available to help people.
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. I'll say, we've done a lot of campaigns on some very, stigmatizing topics, whether it's suicide prevention or talking about 988, and similarly, lots of mistrust and trying to break down barriers, especially for historically marginalized communities. And kind of you hear one bad story that unfortunately becomes the news, and that is the narrative. And so you have to do a lot of work to kind of try to tell the other part of the story. I think one thing that has worked in a lot of the work we've done statewide is trying to create those customizable tools for all the partners, all the victim advocacy organizations, and any partners across the state to then kind of think about how they're going to take the message and use it in their community, in their context, because we also know, like, we have very broad messaging in our campaign. It's again, I want to just stress that it's awareness, because we did find a lot of people still don't know. But then to think about how we customize it. What does it look like for Native communities? What does it look like for different communities? And so having that template, and I think what we've learned in a lot of the work we've done are things that many of us already know, but just how much it is really important to talk about that trust, or giving those tangible things that people can see and feel like it's worth their time, not to mention many other things that need to happen once you actually undergo the process, but also just keeping in mind the limitations of what an awareness campaign can do. So I would say just thinking about kind of building more customizable resources and tools for partners that can be evergreen. It doesn't have to be just to the extent of this contract, but can be used beyond our time together, would be really fruitful. And that's what's worked with us with a lot of, partners, Native serving organizations, youth serving organizations. We kind of give them templates with some of the core messages, and then they take it and run with it, and can kind of make it their own, and then it outlives the time of the contract. So that can help. I think as long as we kind of have some of those core messages down, and the core things we want to say, and then more and more people are saying them, and there's consistency and adaptability across communities, that would be a good investment in thinking about that.
Great, thanks.
Member Becton, did you have any questions or comments?
So thank you for that. I think it's an interesting time, right? As I mentioned earlier, we're going to do this ethnic media push at a time where perhaps people who don't speak English as their first language might be fearful of cooperating with government. I think our hope, and as Camille talked about, our hope is to build that layer of trust with the state and with the partnership that we do. So we have seen individual applications rise, which we hope is because they're seeing some of the ads or recognizing that it's a service that they can use. And then we hope that we're able to build on that as we move forward. I think, again, the longevity will be that we will have these materials translated into many languages that we'll be able to continue to use after the end of the campaign, and hopefully continue to engage with communities in a way that lets them know that they can trust our organization and that we're here to help them.
Thank you. If there is no further public comment on this item, I think we can move to item 7.
Thank you. Item 7 is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of Adrian Gentry, which will be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
Adrian Gentry filed an application as an erroneously convicted felon with the California Victim Compensation Board on April 24th of 2023. That application was supplemented in June of the same year. It is based on his 2018 convictions for voluntary manslaughter and assault by means likely to produce great bodily injury with a firearm enhancement. The claim seeks $310,520 for 2,218 days of imprisonment. The Attorney General objected to the claim, and as you can see and is explained in great detail in the proposed decision, the claim is recommended for denial as Adrian Gentry has failed to meet his burden of showing by a preponderance of the evidence that he is innocent of the challenged convictions as required by Penal Code Section 4900A. Throughout these proceedings, Mr. Gentry represented himself. The Office of the Attorney General was represented by Deputy Attorney General Tammy Hennick.
Thank you, Counsel. I don't believe Mr. Gentry is online. So we can hear directly from Ms. Hennick from the Attorney General's office.
Hi, thank you, Tammy Hennick, on behalf of the Attorney General, and we agree with the board's decision, would submit on that.
Thank you, Ms. Hennick. Is there any discussion on this item from the board?
Is there any public comment on this item here in Sacramento or via Zoom?
We need a motion first.
Excuse me.
I'll move to approve item 7.
I second.
Any public comment? Seeing none, Counsel, please call the roll.
The motion before the board is adoption of the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Adrian Gentry. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 8 is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of William Woods, which will be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
On September 16th of 2024, William Woods filed an application with the Victim Compensation Board, which was supplemented several times before filing in February of 2025. The application is based on Mr. Woods' 2021 convictions for identity theft and false representation. These convictions were vacated and dismissed in April of 2024. Also in April of 2024, the court found Mr. Woods factually innocent of these crimes within the meaning of Penal Code Section 1485.55. As mandated by the court order and pursuant to Penal Code Section 1485.55, the proposed decision recommends compensation in the amount of $80,640, which represents $140 per day for each of the 576 days that Mr. Woods was wrongfully imprisoned. Mr. Woods is represented in these proceedings by Lauren Young of Kecker, Van Nest, and Peters. The Office of the Attorney General is represented by Deputy Attorney General Jessica Liel.
Thank you, Counsel. We'll hear first from Ms. Young.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Lauren Jung. I'm an attorney at Kecker, Van Nest, and Peters. I'm also joined by my colleague, Kari Tillery. We represent Mr. Woods, and I'm also joined by Mr. Woods, who's with me on speakerphone. He was having some technical difficulties with Zoom. So we'd like to start by expressing our thanks to the board for hearing us today. We really appreciate your time and consideration. So as already discussed, on August 20th, 2019, Mr. Woods was arrested for the commission of 2 impossible crimes: the false impersonation of himself and the identity theft of his own identity. Mr. Woods had walked into a bank that day to close accounts that he had discovered had been fraudulently opened under his name, and he wasn't able to answer the security questions that had been created with that account. The bank employee subsequently reported Mr. Woods, and he was arrested later that day. During all proceedings, Mr. Woods maintained rightly that he was the real Mr. Woods and that his identity had been stolen. And because of this, he was declared mentally incompetent, and he subsequently spent months in a state hospital. He pled no contest to these charges in 2021 and was sentenced to time served. all while the real perpetrator of his identity theft continued to live as Mr. Woods. When Mr. Woods was released, he didn't give up on what he knew all along, which is to say that he was telling the truth. He launched his own investigation and eventually found an investigator who was willing to look into his case. And with the help of this investigator and DNA testing, Mr. Woods was finally able to prove the truth, which led to the arrest and conviction of the real perpetrator, a man who had stolen his identity years prior. Mr. Woods' conviction was vacated. He was found factually innocent in April 2024. So in short, we're here today and able to discuss this claim because Mr. Woods has displayed an incredible reserve of resilience and persistence. No amount of time or money compensate Mr. Woods for what he's been through and what he's lost, but we are very grateful for the proposed decision granting compensation for the time that he lost as a result of this erroneous conviction, and we respectfully request the board to adopt the proposed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jung, and thank you for your advocacy in this claim. Would Mr. Woods like to address the board?
One moment, please.
Great, thank you.
Apologize. We had some technical difficulties. Mr. Woods is now, I think, with us. Mr. Woods?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I was like factually innocent and I tried to, just write my DOJ report like I'm supposed to, and then everything that the Federal Trade Commission told me to do too as well. And, because I'm taking my data. So that's what I did. I took that report and I called DOJ reports for the California Department of Justice as well. But yes, right. I did try to follow procedures as well as said. So that's what I did.
Okay.
So I was trying to.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. We'll hear now from Ms. Leal from the Attorney General's office.
Good morning. I have no further comment. I would ask the board to adopt the proposed decision, and I am personally happy to see Mr. Woods get the compensation he deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leal, for your work on this claim. Is there any discussion on this item by the board? Do I have a motion on item 8?
Move to approve the hearing officer's recommendation.
I second.
Is there any public comment on this item here in Sacramento or via Zoom? Seeing none.
Council, please call the roll.
The motion before the board is adoption of the Penal Code Section 4900 proposed decision in the matter of William Woods. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 9 is the Penal Code Section claim of Michael Anderson, which would be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
Michael Anderson filed an application as erroneously convicted person on March 7th of 2025. It was also supplemented on March 17th of 2025. The application is based on Mr. Anderson's 2003 conviction for murder, which was reversed and vacated by a writ of habeas corpus in June of 2023. In February of 2025, the Superior Court granted Mr. Anderson's motion for relief pursuant to Subdivision D of Penal Code Section 1485.55. Accordingly, compensation is automatic under Penal Code Section 4900, subsection B. The proposed decision recommends compensation in the amount of $1,150,380, which represents $140 per day for each of the 8,217 days Mr. Anderson was wrongfully imprisoned. Mr. Anderson is represented by Ian Graham of Kravis, Graham, and Zucker, and the Office of the Attorney General is represented by Deputy Attorney General Jessica Leal.
Thank you, Counsel. We'll hear first from Mr. Graham representing Mr. Anderson.
Good morning.
Ian Graham on behalf of Michael Anderson, who is not present. I just respectfully request the board adopt the hearing officer's recommendation and grant the claim, and nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. We'll hear now from Ms. Leal from the Attorney General's office.
Yes, we similarly just requested the board adopt the proposed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Leal. Do I have any discussion on this item by the board? I'll call for a motion to approve this item.
I move to adopt the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Michael Anderson.
I'll second that.
Is there any public comment on this item here in Sacramento or via Zoom?
Council, please call the roll.
The motion before the board is adoption of the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Michael Anderson. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Item 10 is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of Lombardo Palacios, which will be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
As you've seen from your materials, the next two items are related as they arise from the same criminal act. Mr. Lombardo Palacios filed an application with CalVCB on February 25th of 2025 for compensation as an erroneously convicted person. That application is based on his 2009 conviction for murder, which was vacated and dismissed in December of 2024. In February of 2025, the court found Mr. Palacios factually innocent of the crime within the meaning of Penal Code Section 1485.55. As mandated by the court order and pursuant to the Penal Code, the proposed decision recommends compensation in the amount of $898,100, which represents $140 per day for each of the 6,415 days Mr. Palacios was wrongfully imprisoned. Throughout these proceedings, Mr. Palacios has been represented by Nicholas Thomas, and the Office of the Attorney General is represented by Deputy Attorney General Catherine Althizer.
Thank you, Counsel. We'll hear first from Mr. Tomas representing Mr. Palacios.
Hi, good morning, Board. My name is Nicholas Thomas, and I represent Lombardo Palacios and his co-defendant, Charlotte Pleites. I'm honored to be joined next to me by Mr. Palacios. He spent 17 and a half years in prison for a crime he did not commit. He was only 15 years old when he started his incarceration. And as we sit here today, he spent more time in prison than he's been free. So, you know, I appreciate the speed and responsiveness of the board in addressing this claim. Obviously, it's hard to put a dollar amount, or it's, perhaps impossible to put a dollar amount on life that is lost. But I would agree with the board's proposed decision and ask that it be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas, and thank you for your advocacy in this claim. Mr. Palacios, would you like to address the board?
No, just.
Thank you. And we will hear from Ms. Althizer from the Attorney General's office.
Good morning. I'm Deputy Attorney General Catherine Althizer. We agree with the proposed decision and we respectfully request that the board adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Althizer. Is there any discussion on this item by the board? Do I have a motion on item 10?
I move to adopt the hearing officer's proposed decision in the PC Section 4900 matter of Lombardo Palacios.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any public comment on this item here in Sacramento or via Zoom?
Council, please call the roll.
Sorry. The motion for consideration by the board is adoption of the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Lombardo Palacios. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Item 11 is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of Charlotte Pleites, which will be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
This application was also filed on February 25th of 2025 and stems from Ms. Pleites' conviction in 2009 for murder, which was vacated and dismissed also in December of 2024. In February of 2025, the court granted Ms. Pleites' found Ms. Pleites factually innocent of the crime within the meaning of Penal Code Section 1485.55. As mandated by the court order and pursuant to Penal Code Section 1485.55, the proposed decision recommends compensation in the amount of $898,100. Ms. Pleites is represented by Nicholas Thomas in this matter, and the Office of the Attorney General is represented by Deputy Attorney General Catherine Althizer.
Thank you, counsel. We'll hear first from Mr. Thomas.
Good afternoon again, board. I am honored again to be present electronically with Charlotte Pleites, who I actually met when I was in law school. And upon looking into her case, it was quickly apparent that she was completely innocent of the crime that she was convicted of, and so too was her co-defendant, who is sitting next to me. I would again, ask that the board adopt the proposed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Ms. Pleites, would you like to address the board?
Yeah, I would actually. First, I want to say, I'm really grateful for all the people who've advocated and fought for my release. It was a group of people. It was not just, one person. It was people that believed in making things right in the justice system, because it failed both me and Lombardo, as it has so many other people. And, upon release, things have not been as easy as I thought it would be. And I'm addressing this due to I was sitting and listening to the meeting and how the SB 490 was presented. And so that really concerned me. And it was actually very discouraging to hear, being that, people who have been exonerated are victims themselves. And the California Victims Compensation Board, in my mind, in my perspective, should, want to help victims. And so to hear that, it was just discouraging and sad. However, I do know that, there is compensation, and I'm grateful for that as well, being in the position I am. I also I want to address the victims of the crimes that have been committed, because they are still victims. And although they got the wrong people, those people still might be out there or maybe not, but regardless, those people are victims. And I just want to, acknowledge and address them as well. I often ask myself, would anyone give up any day to be incarcerated for $140? And the answer is always no. No one would ever, in their right mind, give up a day of incarceration for $140. And I mean, the amount of humiliation, trauma, abuse, degradation, and inhumane treatment that is given while we are incarcerated, no one would ever. And so although I'm grateful, there's concern that $140 is the amount that whoever chose it would be okay. And so the amount of mental health services that I need today, that money that is going to be compensated to me, most of it is probably going to go to that, amongst my family who has also gone through it. And so it's really sad. But again, I am grateful. I'm not complaining. I think it's something that should be brought up, because no one would do that. It's a lifetime of healing from such a horrible, traumatic experience. I personally have estrangement with a daughter that I had. I actually have a picture behind me, and I want to honor them. of my mom, who was there to pick up my daughter, who I gave birth to. I was 2 months pregnant when I was incarcerated. My daughter was given to my mom while she was only 1 day old. I have no really relationship to her because of the estrangement and lack of availability to her through my incarceration. So I don't even really have a relationship with her now, which is devastating. She'll be 18 this year. So I just want to really bring those things to light because it has affected me tremendously, as well as my family. And I just really hope that, the California Victims Compensation Board can really, instead of just looking at it from a perspective of money, we're getting this money, it's beyond that. There's so much trauma, and I can't explain it. I can't unless one goes through it. I just believe with that SB 490, there's actual emotional detachment, and sensitivity, and critical. It's like critical and judgmental to the exoneree. So I did want to just speak on that. But again, I'm grateful to be here and free and not in prison, and the support that I have, with my attorney, Nicholas Tomas, amongst other people who have advocated and been there for me and my family. I'm so grateful. And I don't want that, anything I said, to take away from that, because my freedom is everything to me. But so yeah, I wanted to share that. But thank you guys for hearing me and for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Plaitas. You're absolutely right. No amount of compensation can make up for time spent incarcerated for a crime that a person didn't commit. And I'm very sorry for that you lost your relationship with your daughter, among other things.
Thank you.
Is there any comment from the board on this item? Do I have a motion on item 11?
I move to adopt the hearing officer's proposed decision in the PC Section 4900 matter of Charlotte Plaitas.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any public comment on this item here in Sacramento or via Zoom?
Excuse me. The executive director pointed out to me correctly that I had forgotten to ask for comment from Ms. Altizer from the Attorney General's office. So I'll go out of order a bit and we'll hear from Ms. Altizer.
We have no further comment. We agree with the proposed decision and respectfully request that the board adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Altizer, and sorry to have passed over you initially. So we have a motion on the floor and a call for public comment. Seeing none, council, please call the roll.
The motion before the board is adoption of the hearing officer's.
Oh, sorry. I think Ms. Plaitas would like to address the board again. Yes, Ms. Plaitas.
I do. I just, I really just want to address somebody who's really been here for me through this whole time and has gone above and beyond, and that is my attorney, Matt Lombard. And I'm so grateful for him, and I want to make sure I acknowledge him because, he has gone above and beyond to just really help me through this process of getting out of prison and helping me through a lot of the struggles that I've, have been going through. So just wanted to address him and acknowledge him because it's really important to me. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plaitas. Council, please call the roll.
The motion before the board is adoption of the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Charlotte Plaitas. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 12 is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of Miria Arias, which will be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
Maria Arias filed an application with the California Victim Compensation Board on January 2nd of 2024, which was supplemented multiple times from January of 2024 to May of 2024. The application is based on her 2018 convictions for extortion, attempted grand theft, second-degree burglary, and each with a hate crime enhancement. These convictions were vacated and dismissed in June of 2021. In April of 2024, the court found Ms. Arias factually innocent of the crimes within the meaning of Penal Code Section 1485.55. As mandated by the court order and pursuant to that same Penal Code section, the proposed decision recommends compensation in the amount of $85,960. Ms. Arias represented herself throughout these proceedings, and the Office of the Attorney General is represented by Deputy Attorney General Tammy Hennick.
Thank you, counsel. We'll hear first from Ms. Arias. Ms. Arias, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I just want to say thank you. I know, they just mentioned no money takes away the trauma that we've gone through, but again, I'm grateful to be here and have the opportunity, for courts to review my claim, my case, and know that I was wrongfully convicted. But again, thank you, and I'm very honored to be here. And again, thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Arias. We'll hear now from Ms. Hennick from the Attorney General's office.
We have no further comment and would respectfully request the board to adopt the position and its recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Hennick. Any comment, discussion on this item from the board? Do I have a motion on item 12?
I move to adopt the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Maria Arias.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any public comment on this item here in Sacramento or via Zoom?
Council, please call the roll.
Motion before the board is adoption of the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of Maria Arias. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The board will now convene into closed session under Government Code Section 11126 sub C3 to discuss numbers 1 through 95 of the Victim Compensation Program. The board is reconvening into open session under Government Code Section 11126 Sub 3. Do I have a motion for numbers 1 through 95 of the Victim Compensation Program?
I move approval of numbers 1 through 95 of the Victim Compensation Program.
I'll second that motion.
Council, please call the roll.
The motion for consideration is approval of numbers 1 through 95 of the Victim Compensation Program. Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Is there any other business that needs to come before the board today? Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move the meeting be adjourned.
I'll second that motion.
Council, please call the roll.
Member Becton.
Aye.
Member Johnson.
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in July
Thank you.
for the meeting and then the hearing.
Thank you.